And so becoming a startup founder is hands down one of the most rewarding decisions I've ever made in terms of the learning opportunities, growth opportunities, and the freedom it has given me. But when I started my entrepreneurial journey, there was one question I kept hearing that nearly drove me nuts. But will it scale? It's a question every investor, advisor, and expert loves to ask about new ideas, and I'm here to tell you why it's the wrong question to be asking, especially at the early stages. Hi there, if you're new to this channel, my name is Ash Moria. I'm an entrepreneur and author and the creator of the popular one-page business modeling tool, Lean Canvas, used by millions of people around the world. On this channel, I share systematic strategies and techniques for launching and growing a startup. So let me take you back to when I first started blogging about startup methodologies. There was no master plan or grand content strategy in place. I started the blog simply because I was struggling to grow my own startup and found that writing publicly clarified my thinking and kept me externally accountable. I spent nearly 8 hours, yes, a whole day, writing each blog post. For the first month, I had exactly 4 readers, and I was one of them. My entrepreneur friends and advisors thought I had lost my mind and asked me how I could afford to take so much time away from my startup. I told them that yes, there was no master plan and I was really writing for myself, but that I had just recently doubled my readership from 4 readers to 8 readers, which represented 100% audience growth. Of course, they weren't amused and I was met with, "Sure, but will it scale?" I kept writing, and funny enough, that doubling continued to 16 readers, and then I had 32, until 4 months later, I had over 1,000 readers. And then something interesting happened. A few of my readers asked if I'd consider turning my posts into an ebook of some sort. Again, I had no book writing experience or master plan for writing a book. I was mostly curious by the request and engaged them further to learn why they wanted a book, and decided to start testing demand for the book by speaking publicly, which is something I used to dread doing, delivering workshops on topics that could go potentially into the book, which is something I'd never done before, and hosting a local lean startup meetup group in Austin. I also ran a few founder office hours where I'd meet with founders one-on-one to help them think through their early business models. All this extra work took even more time away from my startup, and I was again met with, "But will it scale?" Now, while researching the book, I had also started tinkering with the idea of capturing a business plan on a single page. This led me to the business model canvas, which I found helpful in many ways, but overkill for an early stage startup. And so I created an adapted version that became the Lean Canvas. Being a technical founder myself, I considered turning it into an online tool and was again met with, "But will it scale?" 16 months later, I had managed to turn those early blog posts into a best-selling book, Running Lean, that's still selling strong some 12 years later, and a Lean Canvas software tool. On book launch day, many of the founders I had met with while writing the book publicly showed up in numbers to review it and support it. The Lean Canvas tool started gaining traction, and I decided to sell my company and go all in on a new early-stage startup, which became LeanStack. Many of my friends try to talk me out of it because the early stage is unpredictable, messy, and harder to monetize, but I believe that the early stage journey doesn't have to be any of those things. With the right thinking processes, I believe that the early stage could be made predictable and systematic. And so I went on to then spend the next several years curating, synthesizing, and testing an early stage framework by taking the best of several methodologies and organizing them into a systematic process. That tinkering resulted in another best-selling book, Scaling Lean, the Continuous Innovation Framework and Playbooks, the LeanStack accelerator platform that we now license to dozens of startup accelerators, universities, and corporates around the world to help them run their startup and innovation programs. The Lean Canvas tool today, which started off as just a simple blog post, is now used by over 3 million people, and what started as a simple, innocent, humble side project has mushroomed into something a whole lot bigger than I could have imagined. Now, this chapter, of course, is still being written, and yes, I still continue to be met with, "But will it scale?" Hopefully by now you can see why this is still the wrong question to be asking. A lot of entrepreneurs I find, myself included, are usually in a rush to get to the right side of the hockey stick curve. They obsess over scaling risks prematurely when they haven't even validated if they are building something worth scaling in the first place. It's like worrying about traffic jams on your rocket ship to Mars when you haven't even built an engine that works. Next, unless you know how to measure the right side of the hockey stick, you'll never know when you get there. And this is a problem because what you do on the left side is very different from what you do on the right side. And even more importantly, you can't get to the right side of the hockey stick without going through the left side first. In other words, every unicorn went through the flat portion of the hockey stick curve, and even though nothing seems to be happening here, that's where the real magic transpires. The best startups don't start with scaling, they start with learning. That's where successful founders try a lot of things behind closed doors and at small scale, which help them unlock insights or secrets where they start seeing truths that others don't yet see. They then turn these insights into something repeatable, which is the gateway to building something scalable. In other words, you can't scale something that isn't first repeatable. I somewhat accidentally and totally out of necessity took a different approach early on that started tiny. And by focusing on tiny, it allowed me to defer a lot of these scaling risks and just focus on starting risks. And here's the counterintuitive bit. By not focusing on scale early on, I actually built something that ended up scaling massively because starting tiny allowed me to test lots of ideas quickly without fear of sunk costs or reputation, get real feedback fast from motivated early adopters, pivot or make drastic changes when and as necessary, and only move forward with building things that people demonstrably wanted. For many of the successful products I showcased early on, there's a much bigger list of bad ideas that went nowhere, but because I was moving fast and course correcting in real time, they didn't really feel like failing, but rather learning through iterations. And the most successful founders managed to pack in the most number of iterations per unit time than others. So instead of asking, will it scale from day one? Here are some better questions you should be asking. Is this idea worth pursuing at all? What assumptions must be true for this to work, and how can I test the riskiest assumptions first, quickly and cheaply? Then, what is the smallest version I can build to start the learning process? Not 6 months from now, but in under 3 months or 90 days from now. In my case, writing blog posts was a smaller version than writing a book. Creating a PDF version of a lean canvas and teaching it in workshops was a smaller version than building a software tool. And just how tiny of an audience is tiny, I like to aim all my new ideas now at just 10 handpicked early adopters. Yes, you heard me right, not 100 or 1,000, just 10 people. If you can't repeatedly deliver value to just 10 people, what makes you think your product will work for hundreds or thousands of people? Even today, I never start by asking, will it scale? When I have an idea, my first questions are always, can I test this with 10 people? What's the fastest way, which is often the opposite of the most scalable way, I can use to deliver value to them? My blog started with just 10 readers, which grew to hundreds and then thousands. When I considered writing a book or building the Lean Canvas tool, I first ran workshops with tens of people, then pre-sold my book and opened my tool up to hundreds of people before I was ready for the thousands. Do you see the pattern here? Instead of doing an all-out or go big or go home public launch, you counterintuitively learn and grow faster with a stage-based 10x product launch. Each stage, like levels in a video game, test your riskiest assumptions first, and as you complete level 1, you don't immediately turn the dial up to level 10, but instead progressively level up, which makes the scaling journey a lot more manageable and systematic. If you'd like to learn more about this 10x product launch strategy, you should check out this video over here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care.